Hello, everybody. This is John. Welcome to the Ag Weather Outlook for January 30th, 2016. Well, last week, for the most part, was a fairly quiet week. You can see that we did have some modest precipitation in the form of snow over parts of the upper Midwest, but large parts of the eastern Corn Belt, very quiet week. Most other areas also fairly quiet. Now, if we look at how much snow fell over the last week, just really, a couple inches here and there, with the exception along the Great Lakes, along the lee side of the Great Lakes, and a few other areas, some heavier snow, but for the most part, just a scattering of light snow. We still had the remnants of the very heavy snowstorm, the blizzard over the East Coast, but again, it was fairly quiet. Now, if we look at how much snow is on the ground here, and I'm going to cover this in a post this week, it's pretty quiet for this time of year. I'm not impressed at all with the snowpack. And there have been a lot of holes in it. We haven't had the repeated storms. You might have seen my issuance this past week talking about repeated storms, feedback type loops. And what I see a lot of times in the big, real active winters is that an area of low pressure moves along the southern edge of a deep snowpack, sort of southwest to northeast. So areas that get snow get a lot more snow. Haven't seen no sign of that at all this winter. Matter of fact, we have a little bit of a mild spell over the weekend, and you can see that we have very active melting. So the snow that's on the ground, we're losing a lot of it over North and South Dakota, parts of Iowa. It'll be sort of short-lived because I'm going to be talking about some more snow over parts of that area, but certainly from an entire upper Midwest standpoint, it's been fairly quiet as far as snow goes. Now, I've been really interested in the overall sequence of winter so far. And so I've talked about that a lot. You can tell when I'm interested in something, but start of the winter or late fall, we went in this prolonged period of a positive Arctic oscillation that went right through the end of the year. And that was generally a mild period. I think that was the first type of regime that we had for the winter. The second, January 1st up until fairly recently, was a cold snap. Third one we're in right now, and this is a much shorter than these first two. And this is this period of relatively mild weather over most areas. Now, you might ask, how long do these usually last? Well, there's a lot of variability, but I can tell you this is unusual to have one this long. I think this is more likely on the period of 2 to 3 weeks. That's more likely. The big question mark here, and actually I don't think it's that much of a question mark, I sent something out yesterday, is we're going into another one that's going to be a significant pattern change, and that's what my briefing will be talking about quite a bit. Now this week, for the first 5 days, this is an average. It's going to be a transition week, and if we look at the middle part of the week, we're going to see this area of low pressure pushing through, Arctic high pressure behind it, severe weather ahead of it with this moisture pulling north, and a lot of that moisture, some of that moisture I should say, is getting into the cold air here. So we're looking at a wide variety of weather, including snow. Now temperatures this week are going to again be in a transition. The eastern side of this, or earlier this week, is going to be extremely mild, so enjoy those temperatures. You can see that area blue, and that's going to be the transition. Now as far as precipitation goes this week, this is the area I think we need to focus on right here. This is going to be in the cold air. The models are indicating that there's sign of pretty good moisture getting into that, so there is a good prospect of a narrow band, but very heavy snow from parts of Kansas, southeast Nebraska, across Iowa, up into Wisconsin, parts of northern Illinois. Now, if you want to know how much snow, well, here we go. This will change. We're out a ways, but we're looking at early this week as that front goes through, and it looks like there could be a foot of snow in these bright shaded areas. Now we're going to keep some eye on the models. This will probably change, but at least the prospect right in this, centered in this axis, right in here, of very heavy snow. It's going to be a very abrupt band, zero snow to the north, zero snow to the east, right along the northwest track of that area of low pressure. So as that low pressure might change a little bit one way or the other, that could change that axis. Let's keep an eye on that. I'll probably put an update out on that over the next day or so, a snow update, just to keep you informed. Okay, now other than that, here's the big overall pattern change I talked about yesterday. I want to give you an average of the 4th through the 9th, and what you can see here is a dip in the jet stream right across the Great Lakes into the middle Mississippi and Ohio River valleys. As you know by now, that means much colder air. So when we look at the average for 6 to 10 days, we see not just the upper Midwest, but a large part of the nation is influenced by these colder temperatures. But the greatest departure from normal temperatures in the upper Midwest. Now, of course, I'm wondering how long will this last? Well, we go out a little bit further. Here's going out 11 to 15 days, and it's still here. So not only is this going to be significant as far as below normal temperatures, it's going to be prolonged. Now, don't want to scare you too much as far as temperatures here, but this is looking at February 10th. And look at these departure from normal. This is over 15 degrees below normal during a very cold time of the year. So we're looking at sub-zero temperatures over the upper Midwest and single digits well into the middle part of the nation during the second week in February. But this will come in several pulses. I was looking at the models in more detail. We're going to have an extreme cold push, then we'll moderate a little bit, and another one in that second week. So it's not going to necessarily be like this the entire period, but the average will be. So we're definitely looking at a change here. This will be the fourth pattern of the winter, and it's going to be a cold one, and it looks like at least a couple weeks. Now, but with the cold air, we normally get drier weather over a large part of the nation. We still have this El Nino type pattern over the southern tier of the U.S., but we have a very dry type pattern here. And this isn't so much El Nino. This is more just the overall pattern with that dip in the jet stream. So cold and dry. A lot of times when we get mild or we get transitions, that's when we get wet. This looks cold and dry. So here are your takeaway points. We have a lot of hazards this week. Heavy snow hazards right in this region right here, as I mentioned. Severe weather possibility in this region, as well as heavy rain. But the alerts this week, it looks like a very heavy snow alert and a cold snap. The trends, issuing a trend alert here for well below normal temperatures. Right now, it looks like they very well could last well into February, at least through the middle part of the month. And I'll be keeping an eye on that too and see if that will break, because we're getting now to the time of year where changes in precipitation or temperature start to have a greater impact for the start of the growing season. So big changes this week, very active snow if you're in the area of that narrow band. So keep alert, and if you have any questions, let me know, and I'll be talking with you again next weekend.